All right, so let us begin our time together. Good to see you all. I invite you to take a deep breath and just become present with us this morning. We have some words to center ourselves this morning as we come into this time together. These meditative words this morning come from the Black abolitionist and philosopher and writer Frederick Douglass. In these words, Douglass, who was a humanist, described what he saw as glimpses of God in how we take care of and love one another. In an 1870 speech at a celebration following the passage of the 15th Amendment, he remarked this: "I have no sort of sympathy with that kind of religion that expresses its devotion to God by neglect of their fellows. I want to express my love to God and gratitude to God by thanking those faithful people who've devoted the great energies of their souls to the welfare of mankind. It is only through them that I can get any glimpses of God anywhere." So as I invite our bowl to sound, I invite you to take a deep breath and let those words sink into your being and let them sink into your heart and your mind and reflect on what they might mean for you.
Good morning, everyone. It's really a gift for me to be with you all this morning. And I just think that one of the really neat things about this pandemic is leading worship from so far away here in my room in Cambridge, Massachusetts, being out there with you all in Tennessee. It's really a gift to be with you. So our opening words are from the Reverend Richard Gilbert, titled "We Bid You Welcome." And I invite you to join me in this spirit as I read these opening words. We bid you welcome, who come with weary spirit seeking rest, who come with troubles that are too much with you, who come hurt and afraid. We bid you welcome, who come with hope in your heart, who come with anticipation in your step, who come proud and joyous. We bid you welcome, who are seeker of a new faith, who come to explore, who come to learn. We bid you welcome, you who enter this time as homecoming, who have found here room for your spirit. Whoever you are, whatever you are, and wherever you are on your journey, we bid you welcome here. So our chalice lighting this morning are words from the Reverend Michael Tino. The flaming chalice was first used by the Unitarian Service Committee as a symbol of life-saving refuge for people fleeing persecution in Europe. As we light this chalice, we invoke the love that called people to put their lives at risk to save others. May we ourselves be vessels of life-saving welcome. So now I will go to our children's story today, which is a story that I have for you. Our wisdom story is about a red crayon. So all his life, the crayon knew that he was red, except he felt a little funny in his red packaging. Over and over, he kept feeling like he wasn't very good at being red. He would try over and over and over again to draw a red fire truck, but all that came out, unfortunately, was a blue one. Oh dear. His teacher thought maybe he just needed to practice more. So the red crayon teamed up with another red crayon, and they ended up trying and trying again to draw strawberries. Watching over and over and over again as the red crayon drew, he decided that he would try to give it a try as well. But he found out that he really couldn't. All of his strawberries turned out blue. Ah, man. His mother thought maybe if he were to just try to mix other colors together, maybe that would help to make him a little more red. So the red crayon and the yellow crayon decided to give it a try, going around and around and around in circles. But unfortunately, in the end, they just ended up making this huge greenish blob and mess, not the red that the red crayon was hoping for. Oh man. His grandparents thought maybe he just needed to draw a self-portrait like the others in his class. Surely, like purple and green, he'd be able to draw himself red if he were to just do it. Well, it didn't work. Everyone seemed to have an opinion about what was going on with the red crayon. One would say, "Sometimes I wonder if he's really red at all." Another said, "Frankly, I just don't think he's very bright." His teacher kept saying, "He really just needs to apply himself." The crayon felt pretty sad and alone. But one day, he made a new friend. Purple came up to him and asked him if he might help to draw. "Will you make a blue ocean for my boat?" Purple said. "I don't know if I can do it. I'm red." Purple said, "Come on, give it a try." And so he did. And he didn't stop there. He drew blue jeans, blueberries, and even a whole big blue whale. He was blue, and he was finally and just so happy to know who he was. And everybody was talking about it. They would say things like, his mother would say, "My son is brilliant." And some of his classmates would remark, "His blue strawberries are absolutely my favorite." And others would say, "His blue ocean and whale really lifted me up." And there he was, not a blue crayon after all, or not a red crayon after all, but a blue one. Now, this is one of my favorite stories because it shows just how special the blue crayon really was in the end after everything. When he was finally welcomed to be his bluest self, he felt really happy and included. In our service today, we're talking about this idea of beloved community and what it means for all of us when we feel loved and included and welcome to bring our fullest selves. So when you think about a part of yourself that's a little bit different, or that you're a little afraid to share with others, I want you to remember the blue crayon. When he was finally able to be himself, he had something really special to share with the world and his friends. So that's the story that I have for you this morning for our wisdom story. And I now invite you to join in singing our opening hymn, Gather the Spirit, which I will share from my computer right now.
And I invite you, if you have your computer sound on, to mute it so that if we sing together, you'll be able to hear yourself singing, but you won't necessarily have the lag time with your screen.
Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit, harvest the power, our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour, our trials in this life appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once
drawn by the moon and fed by the sun. Winter to spring and winter to fall. The chorus of life resounding as one.
Gather in peace,
Gather in peace,
gather in faith,
gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength.
gather to celebrate.
Gather to celebrate once again.
Our reading this morning is a passage from the Reverend Jennifer Nordstrom in the book Justice on Earth, People of Faith Working at the Intersections of Race, Class, and the Environment. This concept of the beloved community that she explains here gives us a vivid glimpse at what this really means. I hold a vision of beloved community beyond the horizon of my own knowing. In this community of human and non-human beings, we live in integrity with each other and the earth. We work together to nourish and sustain life. We eat well, but do not take more than we need from each other or the earth. We have diverse, flourishing cultures that cooperate with, respect, and learn from one another without prejudice or hierarchy. We live free from violence or coercion, and we celebrate every day and appreciate the joys of living. We dance and sing, we laugh, we use our minds to the benefit of life, not death. We create art and music, we tell stories, we live in tune with the rhythms of the earth, the seasons, day and night. We live in tune with each other, we live in tune with the rhythms of our own hearts. So expanding on this image of living in tune with the rhythms of the earth and with one another, we'll listen to another song that's really very dear to me about radical welcome and inclusion called Draw the Circle Wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle wide. I first heard this song standing in a circle at one of Harvard Divinity School's weekly choir rehearsals. Standing side by side with my peers of all sorts of backgrounds, musical abilities, beliefs, and faith traditions. The lyrics became embodied in this incredible circle of voices, each one of us joining in the song. This holy moment of music making gave us a glimpse at something far greater than just ourselves. With no single one of us standing alone, many of us were moved to tears by the gentle words and music. To this day, it remains one of my favorite moments in my time in divinity school, reflecting radical types of communities and spaces where I have felt that I was welcomed to bring my full self and that I truly belonged. It also makes me realize just how much I miss things like singing together in church and the sacred moments that we can create together when we're in person. More importantly, though, moments like these point to something special that I know to be true of Unitarian Universalism and the kinds of spaces and communities that we hope to create together. Now, I suspect that I'm not alone in having glimpse moments like this one at something sacred and larger than myself. You too know moments like this one. Moments like singing together in a packed sanctuary on a Sunday, a sing with a swell and a hum that reaches us at our core. Moments like standing in awe under a clear night sky, gazing up at the wide moon and the great expanse of stars overhead. Moments like holding the hand of a loved one who is dying, bearing witness to their sacred and special life as it enters into its final moments. Sometimes we can even feel this in common everyday moments, like in slowing down to enjoy conversation with friends over a shared meal or a simple cup of coffee. I believe these glimpse moments go beyond just glimpses at wonder and connection. Instead, these glimpses offer us a peek at what we hold so dear and sacred as Unitarian Universalists. These are glimpses at the very power of life itself. And while we see a world out there that is so deeply hurting, there are still glimpses we have now at the beloved community that we so desperately dream to create. In exploring today's theme of beloved community, I want to speak to you today about these sacred glimpse moments. Needless to say, many of you have probably already heard a lot about beloved community by now. The concept of the beloved community is something that I hold central to my ministry and calling. It's also the subject of my master's work as I'm finishing up my final semester in divinity school. What I find so hard about language of beloved community is how it can be difficult to envision or even imagine. It might seem like this really abstract idea or something that is just so far beyond the reaches of our own imaginations. Some of us might look skeptically at beloved community as something that doesn't really seem practical or even achievable in our own lifetime. Some of us might be wondering if the arc really does bend toward justice. And even so, I believe that the beloved community isn't really this far off concept that's too difficult for us to grasp or understand. Instead, I believe these everyday sacred glimpses show us that the beloved community is actually real to us and present with us in the here and now.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this is at the heart of Unitarian Universalism and our theology, or how it is that we make meaning, or what it is that we hold sacred. We believe the beloved community is more than just a goal of how life should and ought to be. It's an experience that we have available to us even now. These glimpses at the beloved community help us to be sustained as we work faithfully and tirelessly against injustice and strive to make this world a better place. However, even in the wake of this powerful prophetic vision, we as a tradition are facing many growing pains. We're still trying to sort out what it is that we believe about ourselves as a faith and who we are still yet becoming. Though many of us within Unitarian Universalism have heard of this idea of the beloved community, we're not yet all on the same page. We're trying to make sense of our history while also answering the calls to end white supremacy and racial injustice in ourselves and our institutions. This has become clear in a report from the UUA's Commission on Institutional Change, a commission and committee that examines the structures of power and whiteness in Unitarian Universalism. In their latest report titled Widening the Circle of Concern, the commission named the importance in these times of centering theology in our tradition. In their words, we need to articulate a theology grounded in our Unitarian Universalist principles and sources of inspiration, developing a shared theology that centers on helping to unearth, manifest, and point the way toward liberation is for our collective flourishing. This theology will also call us to be accountable to the legacies of our past deeds and to work for an equitable future. In short, we have a deep need for a common faith, and a better way of speaking about that shared faith. In speaking about the beloved community this morning, I want to offer this theology of glimpsing the sacred as a theology that answers that call. I believe that the beloved community is a thread that can unite each one of us across this beautiful faith, no matter how different our personal beliefs and spiritualities might be. We are at a pivotal moment in our movement where we are deciding who we want to become and how we are leading this faith into the future for years to come. We need a better way of saying what it is exactly that we believe. And the beloved community is both the world that we are building and an experience that we already know through these glimpses. This is one way we might name the core of our theology as a faith. Our reading from earlier by the Reverend Jennifer Nordstrom in Justice on Earth gives us a beautiful vision for what beloved community looks like. In her description of this community, she imagines a world in which we live in integrity with the earth. She names that we don't take more than we need and that we live in tune with nature's seasons and cycles. Likewise, we live in integrity with one another, where we have diverse and vibrant cultures that teach us about what it is to be human without prejudice or hierarchy. Free from violence or exploitation, we live in tune with the rhythms of our own hearts as we laugh and sing together, celebrating the sacred joys of living. What I find so moving about this powerful vision is that it speaks to what we do in Unitarian Universalist communities. We covenant together to be spaces where we can bring our fullest selves, leaving no part of who we are behind or at the door. We strive to live in right relationship with one another and the world around us. And we join our hearts together on life's journey to celebrate life in all of its trials and tribulations, as well as its joys and sorrows. We know what the beloved community is because we first experienced what it means to belong. And this is what is so special about belonging to a Unitarian Universalist community. However, we also know that our communities aren't perfect. In contrast to this greater vision, we see just how far it is that we have to go in order to get there. We recognize the many ways that white supremacy continues to pervade our communities and groups. We long for multicultural communities that reflect this shared theology that we hold so dear. Communities that are welcoming to Black, Indigenous people, and people of color. We hope for a greater acceptance and embrace of queer and trans people in our congregations as we ensure that no single person feels alone or left out. We are growing to be better, and our faith teaches us that such vibrant, dynamic communities are indeed possible. And when we do this right in our communities, we make opportunities for holy encounters, for people to feel loved and accepted just as they are in all that they are. And what we also know is that doing this right in our communities takes intentionality and practice. However, the beloved community isn't some new idea that's emerged in recent years either. This is also something that comes from our Universalist roots as a faith. Our Universalist forebears believed in a greater love that was holding every single one of us. In their view, no person was outside of the bounds of this love. While historically they might call this greater love God, our Universalist ancestors pointed to that very thing that Frederick Douglass, as a humanist, named as glimpses of what he might call God. For our Universalist ancestors, ultimately what mattered wasn't some sense of salvation in the afterlife, though universal salvation was a defining theology. Instead, they believed that salvation mattered in this life. They held a faith that taught that though this world might be marked with pain, tragedy, and injustice, there is good news. And in the end, this world is still savable and worthy of saving. Universalism tells us of a circle of love that embraces every single one of us, no matter who we are or where we are on life's journey. And this widening circle also shows us just how much working toward justice and liberation in this life matters, especially as we work to care for those who are most at the margins. Our faith calls us to widen our welcome, to build a longer table, inviting those who are different from ourselves to pull up a chair. Returning again to the Commission's report, they write, a universalist theology of liberation in the present day centers our capacity to be sanctuaries of radical truth-telling and abundant compassion, so that an all-embracing love at the center of our tradition can serve to make all of us more whole. If we are serious about widening our welcome to others, and I believe that we are, we need a better way of sharing this faith's good news of love and liberation. Imagine what might be possible for this faith if we truly choose to center this potent theology of radical welcome and inclusion. In our children's message this morning, in our wisdom moment I shared with you earlier, we see the power in making beloved spaces where we're welcomed to bring our fullest selves. For the blue crayon that was told his whole life that he was red, he made a friend who saw him as he was. The blue crayon's entire community then rallied to support him, to be his bluest self, to draw the bluest oceans, blueberries, and blue whales. In the end, the blue crayon learned what it meant to belong. And the blue crayon experienced a glimpse moment of living in beloved community and right relationship. Returning also to that moment that I shared with you earlier, of singing in a circle of beloved friends, getting a glimpse at the beloved community to come through this sacred moment of music making. There is so much power in these moments and spaces for connection that we have available for us to experience. And for myself, I was lucky. Becoming a Unitarian Universalist in my teenage years quite literally saved my life. This faith would hold me in some of the most challenging moments of my life, affirming my own worth and dignity through my coming out as gay in my teen and young adult years. I was lucky that I experienced a Unitarian Universalism that held me in all that I was. I was lucky that this powerful experience of beloved community would eventually call me to bring this to others in my ministry. It breaks my heart that there are still folks out there who aren't welcomed to experience our life-saving faith and theology. There are still some who don't feel that they belong, who are left wondering if we'll really make a space for them at the table to bring their fullest selves. So friends, our faith calls us to draw and extend the circle wider. And I invite you to join me in cultivating this shared faith together as a movement. Our good news can't afford to be locked up in empty words of welcome, and instead, we must do the work of widening the circle ourselves. We have a life-saving faith and theology that needs to be shared out now more than ever. So this morning, I want to leave you with this blessing. May we draw our circles wider still. May we be ready to pursue this great promise of the beloved community on the horizon. And when we are weary in the face of anguish, pain, and injustice, may these glimpse moments that we get at the world yet still to come sustain us on the journey. Let this be our song, that no one stands alone, that each one of us belongs and is held in a greater love. May it be so, and amen. So in this time now following the sermon, I invite you to join me in taking a couple of deep breaths as we enter into this brief moment of stillness and quiet together. Taking a deep breath in and out. Another deep breath in and out. Thank you, friends, for sharing that sacred silence with me and with one another today. So we'll now go to our closing hymn, Wayaya, and I invite you to again sing out and make sure that you're also muted so that we don't end up with all this Zoom choral chaos that is bound to happen. And this is a hymn that speaks about the unknown journey that we are on toward the world that is still yet possible for us to create. So in that spirit, please join now in singing, and I will sing, and I will share our video.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going, but we know within. And we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. 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 Oh
So I want to leave you all this morning with this benediction that I say every Sunday as a sort of ritual at First Parish in Wayland. In the spirit of covenant, community, and commitment, and in the spirit of the beloved community and drawing our circles wider still, may we be made ready to serve one another and to build the world that we so desperately dream of. May it be so, and amen.
Thank you so much, Alex, for sharing this time with us and bringing those inspiring words to us. Something that is important at Westside is this idea of widening the circle. And we will continue to talk about widening the circle. It is important for us to be thinking about these things and what beloved community can mean for our community. So I am deeply grateful, Alex, to you for sharing that. It was very helpful to me. You know, the light of our chalice it represents that light of our community. It represents our passion for justice, our aspirations for growth and learning, and also the warmth of the community being together. So as we always say at the end of our time together, as we get ready to go into our coffee hour conversations, we extinguish that light, the chalice itself, but we carry with us in our hearts those aspirations, that light for seeking, and the love and the comfort of a community that supports us each as we are. So I invite you to remain for conversation. And if you are heading off into your week, go into a week of peace and ease. May it be so.